Imagine a fighter jet streaking through the heart of London, flying just feet above the Thames. The roar of its engine echoes across Parliament, leaving onlookers in shock. Then, in a jaw-dropping move, the pilot races toward Tower Bridge, and instead of flying over, he plunges straight through between its towers. This is no Hollywood stunt, but a real-life act of defiance by a Royal Air Force pilot in 1968. What pushed him to risk it all? And how did he pull off one of the most daring aerial manoeuvres in aviation history? This is the incredible story behind the Hawker Hunter Tower Bridge incident. During the 1960s, the UK's Ministry of Defence had undergone a dramatic transformation with defence policy. A 1957 Defence White Paper from the then Defence Minister Duncan Sandys had laid out the perceived future of the British military. No branch of the armed forces would fail to feel the effects of this white paper, but the Royal Air Force in particular would be hard hit. The early years of the Cold War had been centred around the use of high-altitude bombers to deliver nuclear weapons with fast, agile jet interceptors scrambled to intercept. The advent of the ballistic missile, however, changed all of that, particularly in the minds of the politicians. The result was a general downsizing of the RAF. Aircraft numbers reduced, squadrons disbanded, stations mothballed, manpower cut. The knock-on effect on the British aerospace industry was substantial also, with projects in manned aircraft development scrapped or considerably reduced. It was understandable, therefore, that morale in the Royal Air Force was particularly low. This all came to a head for one RAF pilot in 1968. It was the 50th anniversary of the formation of the Royal Air Force, the world's oldest air force. But to add to the already bad feeling between the service and the politicians, it had been decided by the Ministry of Defence not to celebrate the significant event with any official air displays. Official events had instead been limited to a few dinners, parades, and some low-key displays. This didn't go down well with Flight Lieutenant Alan Pollock. He, along with many others, believed a grand flypast was necessary, as aviation history was traditionally celebrated in the air, not on the ground. He was incredibly disillusioned with the Ministry of Defence's lack of proper celebrations for this important milestone, especially given his deep love for the RAF. At the time, Pollock served in the RAF's No. 1 Squadron, one of its oldest units, flying the single-seat ground attack jet fighter, the Hawker Hunter FGA-9. And he felt responsible for leading the charge in marking the RAF's anniversary. Frustrated by these changes and what he perceived as government indifference, Pollock decided to stage his own celebratory flyover. On April 4th, 1968, Pollock departed his home base of RAF West Rainham in Norfolk, with 3 other Hunter pilots to fly to RAF Tangmere in Sussex. Tangmere, the famous World War II fighter station that played a vital role during the Battle of Britain, was due to be mothballed, and Pollock and his wingmen were to provide an air display and to attend ceremonial events. They were then scheduled to return to West Rainham the following morning. The following morning, however, he secretly planned to deviate from their return flight route and take a detour over central London. Shortly after takeoff, Pollock broke away from his squadron, pretending to experience radio problems and lose contact. He flew low to avoid commercial air traffic, making his way to Heathrow, before turning towards Richmond Park, then the River Thames, which he considered the safest path through London and would cause the least trouble. Pollock dropped to 150 feet and, sticking to the centre of the river, passed over several bridges, making his way towards Parliament. As he brought his Hunter round the bend in the river and crossed over Vauxhall Bridge, he saw his target up ahead, the Palace of Westminster and the Houses of Parliament. As Big Ben struck noon, Pollock throttled up his engine and made 3 loud circular passes around Parliament. He was determined to make his presence and feelings known, especially as MPs inside were ironically discussing noise abatement at the time. Pollock's low passes over the Houses of Parliament were heard by many, including RAF Spitfire veteran Wilfred Duncan Smith, the father of future Conservative Party leader Ian Duncan Smith, who had to point out Pollock's aircraft to an oblivious official looking skywards that in fact the aircraft was flying below the Ministry of Defence. After circling Westminster, Pollock sought Downing Street, but without a detailed map he couldn't pinpoint its location, so instead he resumed his path over the centre of the River Thames and continued east. As he passed the RAF Memorial by Whitehall, he dipped his wings in salute and then continued down the Thames, flying over several of London's major bridges: Hungerford, Waterloo, Blackfriars, Southwark and London Bridge. Somewhat unexpectedly, he came face to face with Tower Bridge, which he had forgotten was in his path. With just seconds to react, Pollock impulsively decided to fly through the bridge's spans. An audacious move requiring quick thinking honed from years of low flying. Although he feared his Hunter jet's tail fin would strike the bridge, he successfully navigated through, startling a cyclist who fell off his bike. There had been previous incidents of aircraft carrying out this daring feat, but never by a jet aircraft. Aware that his flying career was likely over, Pollock continued his rebellious streak by turning northeast and headed for RAF Watersham in East Anglia. Dropping to an altitude of a mere 200 feet, he rolled into inverted flight to perform a low-level pass over the airfield. Not content with that, he continued to Suffolk and RAF Lakenheath, where he carried out the same extraordinary manoeuvre. And he wasn't done yet. On to RAF Marham in Norfolk for one last upturned flypast before, reluctantly, bringing this once-in-a-lifetime aerial display, and almost certainly his flying career, to an end. As he landed back at RAF West Raynham, a welcome party was waiting for him, and he was promptly arrested. The aftermath was a mixture of admiration and discipline. Pollock's unit was transferred to North Africa, leaving him behind to face his charge. He received hundreds of congratulatory letters from members of the public, as well as RAF colleagues. The British Overseas Airways Corporation even sent him a keg of beer. The political aftermath included an all-party motion of support, which was signed by 6 MPs, 4 of whom were former RAF servicemen. To avoid further embarrassment to the government, he was invalided out of the RAF on trumped-up medical grounds, and therefore avoided a court-martial. Thanks for watching. Please take a moment to hit the like button and consider subscribing.